Hey guys, thanks for checking in. RDMF Jones here with another video. This time we're going to review and talk about the NRA ARC match, which is America's Rifle Challenge match that took place at Peacemaker National Training Center in West Virginia. This is a kind of new match for NRA. They've only done this a couple of times, and it's still kind of in development, but there's some very interesting things that they're going to do. So I wound up taking off. I worked Friday, and then actually wound up leaving right after work, about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's 7 hours from me. So I wound up getting to the range at about 5 in the morning, and I also rest stopped car, kind of hobo camped for about 2 hours and slept. So I was running on caffeine and anger essentially when I did this match. But I've got some match conclusions at the end, and I kind of give you also a kind of an idea of what Peacemaker National Training Center is like. So stick around, and hopefully you'll enjoy the content. Thanks. So there's a curve coming up towards the end of the road that is pretty nasty. Most of the roads getting back here, you'll see signs telling you, hey, go this way, go that way. But there is a curve where there's actually a warning on it. I got it on the way in. I came in a little earlier. Yeah, right here. Dangerous curve, very slow. They want you to, I imagine somebody at some point lost it on this one going up in here. So take your time. Not a huge deal, but you know, something to keep in mind if you're heading back to Peacemaker. But you're getting close because, like I said, I went and scouted it out ahead of time. Oh, see, lots of deer out here, guys. Lots of deer. They are everywhere. West Virginia is a great deer hunting state anyway, and yeah, so when you're heading back this way,
in 1,000 feet, your destination will be on the right.
Yeah, so here's the barn. Peacemaker National Training Center right there. And then they got all kinds of advertisements and stuff. CMP, Hava, Lapua. And then it looks like this is where we're supposed to go. So right here is the clubhouse. So I'm gonna let on this finger. There you go. Not far. There you go. 5020.
Shoot ready. Stand by.
Just for good measure.
What are my final impressions on the Peacemaker National Training Center NRA Action Rifle match? I will tell you that it is a very interesting concept. People from NRA were there. NRA, of course, you know, right at the time of this video, NRA's embroiled in a bunch of other crap. But essentially, NRA also, the competitive shooting side of the house doesn't care about that. They don't, that's not really a priority for them. That's kind of compartmentalized in that regard. And comparatively speaking, the shooting sports community is not even close to as big a deal as the competitive or as the legislative side of the house. In fact, the representatives from the NRA basically said, hey, that's for the big wigs to figure out. I'm sure they'll figure it out. We're here to run competitions. And they also said that this is a really important match for them. And the reason it's an important match is because basically the AR has turned into America's rifle. We all know that. I mean, you can look at every manufacturer, they've got one out. And because of that, you need to make the rifle common in use. And this is one of the ways that they intend to do that. They intend to make the rifle common in use by creating this match concept. Now, I talked to a couple other competitors that were with me during the actual match, and they went to the first one that they had and said that it was very rough as far as running it. You can tell they're still kind of in production, or they're still kind of in limbo. They don't have it all figured out quite yet, but basically what this looks like to me is very familiar competition if you're used to IDPA, USPSA shooting, mixed in with a mini high power match. That's kind of where they went with it. They went to this mini high power match, at least in the phase 1. So basically they have 2 phases. They have phase 1 for the more beginner shooter, and then they have phase 2 for the experienced competitor. Now, initially, phase 1 was just run on a square range, and it was just, you know, static targets, NRA bullseye targets within 100 yards, and they were doing like shooting around barricades and stuff like that. So it was a real basic match and was kind of set up like high power. Now they've integrated other stages into it. They've done other stuff. So one of the cool things about it is that they eliminated a lot of the square range stuff and started doing a couple of standardized like IDPA, USPSA style stages, but they are with an AR. So it's kind of cool. I didn't feel uncomfortable with the format. I felt uncomfortable because I'm a competitive shooter already, but I did feel uncomfortable with the handling. My personal experience with an AR is I have basically no formal training in an AR. I have a lot of formal training in handguns and shotguns, but I don't have any formal training in an AR. Now, I think I should probably go get some, but to me, the AR-15 or the rifle in general is a secondary tool. It is not the first tool for primary self-defense. It's a hunting device, but as far as using it as a defensive system, short of end of rule of law, I don't see that as a primary weapon systems. If you get to a Katrina situation or a situation where rule of law is not operating, then yeah, then it is your primary device. But for me, the primary firearm that I'm going to ever use in any kind of anger will be the handgun. And that is just because I carry one. It is the weapon of convenience, and it is the weapon that I am the most proficient at. That does not mean that I shouldn't have a skill set in something else, though. And this is kind of a neat way to pick up some skills. So if you're interested in kind of getting better with an AR, or kind of learning, like, what are the standards? What should we be doing with ARs? This is a pretty good class, or a pretty good match. You are going to need to have some basic handling skills. You need to know how the thing operates. I carried my rifle around the entire time. That was probably the longest I've ever carried my AR in one setting. Slung up across my chest just the whole time, except for when I was moving from stage to stage in the vehicle. Other than that, that AR was on the whole time. that was kind of neat. I liked that. I got to see a lot of how my gear works. I, for instance, know that my hand loads were good. I'm not having any issues with them. I got all of them. We fired about somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 200 rounds, and I didn't have one malfunction with any of my hand loads. And because they're my hand loads, I don't really care about, like, you know, getting my brass back or anything, because 223 brass is relatively inexpensive, and I have scads of it. So I didn't care about the brass, but my cartridge cost was very low. I probably paid $40 for all that ammo for about 200 rounds, something like that. So for about 200 rounds. The gun got dirty. It got dusty. It got sandy. There was crap in it. I am covered in a layer of fine particle dust. And the other thing was, some of the more serious competitors out there, they did the phase 1, and then they were going to turn around and do the phase 2 the second half of the day. That's pretty hardcore. I was done. Of course, you all know the rest of the story. I drove literally across 3 states to get to this thing. And I also proceeded to, you know, have almost no sleep. I slept in the car the night before for a little while. And so I wasn't fully prepared for a match, if you will. As opposed if I had been sleeping in a comfortable bed and had a full night's sleep the night before, and, you know, was there with a belly full. And when I actually got out of the car, I kind of had that caffeine jitters. I think I kind of overexerted myself on the caffeine this weekend. Overall, though, it was a very good experience. Best thing I would tell you is it is a IDPA style match with a high power like a miniature high power match thrown in the middle of it, at least the phase 1. Now phase 2, from what I understand, is a lot more longer range targets and more dynamic stuff. That makes sense. It's a rifle match. But I liked that it was designed to be for a newer shooter. It set some standards on things you should get good at. I think that's where they're going with it. That's what NRA seemed to be wanting to do, is to go with that. They want to make this where if you can achieve these standards, you are doing very good. I learned a bunch of stuff. I am not going to lie. I learned a bunch of stuff from this match. First and foremost is I suck at kneeling position. I had no idea. I always hated sitting position. I just thought sitting was just, I could never make it work. It was never comfortable. I rock sitting compared to kneeling. Kneeling, I completely choked on. Prone at 100 yards, I was fine. I got to sitting at 75, I did good. I got to kneeling at 50, and things just completely fell apart. I could not make that work. And then at 25 yards offhand, I did okay. So that's one stage, is literally doing all of that in sequence. And then there were the other stages, and I got film of 2 of them. And so overall, I think it's a good experience. I think I may do it again. It's about a 7-hour drive for me, so I don't know that I will make it like a monthly thing. I mean, we're talking about some serious expense. The match itself was only about $40 worth of match fees, but the whole, you know, the getting out here, the getting the gas, the paying the tolls, the driving, the time, it's a challenge to make one of these things. And then tonight, I found myself a $25 campground, so right by the place. So if you're in the area with Peacemaker, there is a campground very close. So that's kind of a nice thing, because it's not terribly expensive. It's $25 a night for a tent camper and $35, I think, for an RV. And then they got cabins for like $65 or $75. I mean, it's cool though. It's quiet. I'm there now, and if you look, literally I can see the bottom of the creek water. So all in all, I'm going to call this a pretty good weekend, and I've probably ran my mouth enough. Please, if you like this kind of stuff, share it, like it, whatever you're going to do. I don't care. I don't do it for you guys. I do it for me mostly. And I'll holler at you later.